what if the dreams or the premonition or certain thoughts that you have isn't even for this present dimension you? Welcome everybody, this is Mr. Composition, the MC that writes fiction, and this is another episode of The Composition. And if you've seen my recent video on YouTube, if you haven't, go check it out. It's me breaking down a little bit of this new Rick and Morty episode, Rick and Morty and the Grinder, or the Genocider. And today I have guest and friend, frequent collaborator, Kinyo in the building.
What's up? I'm back on the podcast. Do.
Right. Yeah, and it's dope because like Kinyo was just talking about Tumblr, and he was talking about as far as these different connections, because I was looking at some of the comments. Shout out to all y'all that have been commenting on YouTube. I saw some of the comments, and I asked people to tell me of any shows or movies or anything that had to deal with time travel with memories, because if you look at this particular episode, there were some people that said they were confused. And I noticed when it comes to time travel, especially time travel with memories, it's like some people, it seems confusing, because there's several people that said, I got lost, and then they mentioned an anime that I haven't seen, but I think you've seen it.
Steins Gate?
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know, to be honest. It's just I didn't get a clear grasp on it. A lot of animes you gotta get to episode 6 before you really even understand what the hell they're talking about, and especially if you're watching in the background like I was, which is not recommended because it has subtitles. It's hard to watch them on the background when you don't speak that language.
I know, right? It's just all like, right. And then it's just all like explosions. What the fuck just happened? But I think that that's an important trend that happens when it comes to time travel, because after I had made that post, I stumbled across a movie that had to deal with time travel with memories, and it was this movie called Volusion. And the thing was, I started thinking about things like this Rick and Morty episode. I compared it to this song that I just released called Time Machine, and guess what? I got t-shirts now, so make sure you go to the dapshow.com/store and cop out the t-shirt merch. But I did Time Machine, and then I started thinking about, because in the similar way of this movie Volusion, because they said that his whole thing was that he was clairvoyant. And, I've heard that, I've heard of premonition and different things like that. And so in his case, he's able to see a couple of moments in the future to a couple of weeks to these different things. So he's used this ability in different ways. But in particular, this particular time, he saw his own death. And he's just all like, what the fuck? So the rest of the movie is just pretty much him trying to prevent that. But without telling the movie, there was some interstellar vibes that was going on, because in Interstellar, he was presently going through the present moment, all the while his future self was communicating with him in his present moment. It was all going on at the same time. And so that was interesting, because they didn't even touch on time travel as far as that, but ultimately that's what he did by way of memories, because he went back to very specific places that there was an emotional connection to, as far as that particular memory. But what's crazy was that he was going back to moments in time in this large library, and I've heard people decode it and say like that's the Akashic records and different things like that. But Evolution had that same thing, to where it's just like, as you're watching the movies, little moments that you thought was like random was actually a version of himself, and you're just all like, wait, what the hell? When I think about time travel through memories, on why I feel like there's some I feel like some people aren't explaining it right, because I think some people are still detached from the idea that that's a possibility. You know, it's almost like there's a resistance.
It's funny that you say, well, I think there's a lack of knowledge, we're just not that smart. It's funny that you say the Library of Time, though, because I wish I had brought it now, but I have my Book Times library, which you're going to get, on Monday or something like that. But, yeah, I think it's just so early, like quantum physics is early, and you're going to need that in order to really talk about time travel, because we just have a very, when it's so interesting, because when you're born, there's already a lot of stuff going on, and it can be very difficult to grasp the perspective that most of that stuff is actually like an old guy's books, right? And that's weird, it's like someone else, he just kind of came up with the best version, but we're like, not just an old guy, we think, a scientist. And when we say that word, we usually just mean someone who's smarter than us, like in one area, and they're focusing on an area and they're better at it than us, but they're not that good at it, and I think that you kind of like put them on a pedestal, but when it comes to these things, intuitive research, and artistic research, expression research, a lot of these things are actually ahead of science when it comes to these sciences that are in their early ages, and they actually lead the science. And so you see stuff like any kind of time travel fiction, which goes back thousands of years. Time travel fiction's been in, has been a part of like our understanding of reality. Time has been an understanding of our reality, but the idea of time travel has been an understanding of our reality for a very, very long time. Anyway, but you just see people just doing their best. They all have these ideas, and I think what's interesting about, the idea of being able to travel in time, the way that classically it's done, if you do think about that, it means that literally nothing ever happens. Because it could unhappen at any moment. All that would have to happen for a moment to unhappen is for somewhere in infinity for one version of yourself to go back and make a different decision, and then it undoes it. Or then there's other theories like that use different kinds of science that say, oh, but what if there's different dimensions? So you're not actually going back to your dimension, or you create a new, I saw one show, they said, oh, you create a new dimension every time you go back.
And this one was a new timeline and Volusion. So that's what ended up going on. There was like 3 different timelines that were overlapping at this one particular moment, to the point that when the present moment got to being the 4th, timeline, he started like throwing up and different things like that. But that goes along as far as with that, because it's just all like...
Think about that in real life. Think about the fact about a person who... And I'm going to go weird on this one. We're talking about time travel. So think about a person who's actually throwing up because they're sick or something like that, because they're addicted to drugs. Or, no, let's say because they're addicted to drugs. Think about that as a quantum, and almost imagine that there are multiple different timelines. Why? Because that person's living in a simultaneous timeline where, one, they didn't do some things that they regret, so they're holding on to regrets. And then they're also living in, other timelines of anxiety where they did bad things. And so the quantum of that is them throwing up. Why do I say that? It's just because it's very fascinating to think that, I think what we're doing a lot with time travel is breaking down the ways in which we think into separate dimensions. And so we're not so much talking about time travel as we are emphasizing decisions and decision making.
And the effects of those and how those overlap in the mind. Because you are going to have these different decisions or these different experiences as well, that at the same presently you're going through something in the past, what's presently going on, and thinking about the future simultaneously. So when this dude was seeing certain things in this movie Volusion, he realized at the end that the parts of the future that he was seeing was a different timeline version. So that's what was interesting, was that what he was seeing was different things that were happening in a separate timeline. And I was just all like, oh, that's interesting. So what if the dreams or the premonition or certain thoughts that you have isn't even for this present dimension you, by way of the choice or whatever that you made. You know, and there's all the choices happening at the same time, but which one are you currently?
And it comes down to what
of?
people are trying to do. People want to feel enlightened. People want to feel awakened. They like to drink Red Bulls. They like why? Because Red Bull gives you wings. They like to feel like they want to feel like they're in a heightened state, and they want to feel connected. They want to feel in unison. They don't like the idea, which is why a lot of people stay away from certain types of creativity, because there's so much. If you go through your regular life and you encounter regret, like on a HEB purchase or a grocery purchase, imagine the kind of regret that you encounter on an album that you dropped or a painting that you made while even making it.
Yeah.
Regret and conflict and all these things. So people like to avoid, it's hard to deal with those things until you can wrap yourself around the idea that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that's the ultimate thing with time travel too. It's like, it doesn't matter. We want to think that you could go back in time, you could do this, but your decisions right now, why you're doing what you're doing right now, and how you're living right now is more about just chance.
Yeah.
You just live. The only thing that you can do to really go back in time is to be more present right now. You have to go back in time from the future to where you are today, or go from the past into where you are today. All the other kind of time travel doesn't work for you. Like, it just, even conceptualizing it. But there is some interesting science there. And I think the science is going to allow us to do very interesting things in the future. But this was just a quick stop by for me, so I do have to go. Yeah. But I think that's even cooler. I get to leave in the middle of a podcast. Right. That's how my favorite podcasters do it. But,
right. They're just all like, yo, I got to head out.
Thank you guys for listening to the podcast. It was fun talking to you.
Where can they find you?
Okay, I got my project out, Times Library. Head to Kinyo. Find it on www.lightington.org, www.kinyo.org. Times Library. It's a book. It's everything. It's big. Woo! Film festival, digital too. It's high level. Actually, it is a digital film festival. If you make videos and you want to submit, go to www.kinyo.org. Click Enter Time Machine and then register to get in the film festival. $50 a week we're giving out. $50 a week starting next week. Woo! Thanks, K-Priest.
Peace. All right, y'all heard it straight from the man himself. But yeah, it's very interesting. He brought up a lot of good points. What I want to just kind of end off with as far as for this, there might be a part 3. There's so many different ways. I feel like we're definitely just like scratching the surface with this. But I want to take into consideration, I'm going to watch The Butterfly Effect today. I feel like there's going to be definitely something there that kind of connects everything together. But yeah, I definitely want to see that. So I feel like there's going to be some connections with that. Again, if you know any books, shows, movies that have to deal with time travel by way of memories. And what's interesting is, like, on Volusion, he was able to time travel through a chemically induced concoction that was injected into him. And it gave him, I forgot if it was a time limit that he had that he can do that. But check it out, guys. All right. Again, this is Mr. Composition MC that writes fiction. Check out the store, dabtro.com/store. We got CBD, we got t-shirts, we got books. You can download the Quantum Containers Volume 1 album at mrcomposition.bandcamp.com, and you can also stream it on all major streaming platforms. But make sure to check out part 1 of this on YouTube. And, yeah, peace.